21st of June at 6:30. We're going to start off the zoning board of appeals with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 20F, this meeting is being recorded.
Mr. Chairman, also you might want to announce that apparently there's a stenographer. Would have been nice if the town had been notified of it, but
Yes, can you identify yourself, please?
Jessica Brazilian, Court Reporter.
Okay, thank you. The first hearing is a continuation of 7 Macomber Lane, a petition of Peter Johnson and Tanya Johnson for a special permit to construct a 2-level, 1-bedroom detached accessory apartment containing a 2-car garage on first level and 644 square feet of apartment on second level, as allowed by zoning bylaw, Article 9, Section 953. Subject property is located at 7 Macomber Lane, Westport, Mass, and is shown on Assessor's Map 89, Lot 112. The way the meeting will be run, we'll have the petitioner come up. The petitioner will provide whatever information is appropriate. This is a continuation, so there are only very particular parts of the continuation that we'll be hearing. Once we hear from the petitioner, the board will ask questions. Once the board has completed asking questions, I'll then open it up to the public. After the public has provided what information they want to provide, we will then close the hearing and then vote on the petition. So will somebody from 7 Macomber Lane come forward? I am going to read, a notification that we have from Matthew Armendo from the Public Health, because the issue that we had from the first hearing was with the status of the septic system. So there's a memo from Matthew Armendo from the Board of Health. 7 Macomber Lane has a SAF, which is septic system, designed for 6 bedrooms. Health agent Joe Reese conducted a bedroom count on May 19, 2023, and found only 5 bedrooms to exist in the dwelling. The addition of 1 bedroom, adding an accessory unit, is therefore approved. I'll put that into the record. I assume you have a copy of this. Well, you gave it to me, so I know you have a copy of it. So, the floor is yours. Name and address.
Yeah, sure. Ashley Sparks, 463 Long Highway, Little Compton. So we are looking to, this is a continuation, I'm not sure how much I have to say, but we're looking to do exactly what you said and add accessory dwelling to the property. We've got the bedroom count under control, and I did include an enlarged plan, which hopefully helps out with the dimensions from the property line. We meet all of the requirements.
Are the owners here?
The owners are not here.
Okay. Did you discuss with them, I believe we discussed the last one, is that one of the requirements that we generally do as part of a decision is a deed restriction.
Yes, and Maria just gave me the paperwork.
Okay, so all I want to make sure is that the
sign.
owners
That is
are willing to do that.
Correct.
And so the deed restriction would be to ensure that it's only 1 bedroom, no more than 2 people, those kind of things. And we have the paperwork for that.
Yep.
Okay.
So.
At the last meeting, we went through all the particulars of the special permit, so we don't have to go through that again, because the only outstanding item was certification of the septic system, which our updated bylaw, updated this past year, requires us to have approval from the Board of Health before we proceed, which is what I just read. So any other questions from, voting on this will be Jerry Catino, Barbara Ponalillo, myself, Roger Menard, Ray Elias, and Cynthia Kozekowicz. And since this...
Oh, I'm not on, because I was here last.
Wasn't
No,
it?
it was the other one she couldn't.
Oh, was the other
Yeah.
one you couldn't?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't,
You weren't?
Yeah.
Oh, it
Yeah.
was the
it
other
was
one.
the other
Yeah.
one.
Okay, I'll amend that. I thought that you would, anyway.
Yeah, because Konstanski
will be voting on
You
this.
were late, but you made it.
And since it is Since it is a special permit, it requires a majority of 4 in order to grant the petition. So, questions from the board?
We had also talked about getting a sketch plan, more simplified sketch plan, showed setbacks and so forth. I understand we do have that. So
Yes.
that'll become part of the record.
That'll become part of the record.
Yeah, the only thing that was in question was the bedroom.
Right.
And that's resolved, so.
Thank you.
Rita, do you have a copy of the updated plans?
I do.
Okay. So if there's no other questions, then
Move to close the hearing.
I'll open it up to the public first. Is there anybody in the public who would want to discuss on this? Seeing none, then,
Make a motion to close the hearing?
I'll second that.
a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Okay, at this point then, we will just deliberate and render a decision. I think this one's straightforward. They met all the requirements of the special permit, including the septic system. So, since there are no issues with
No problems.
with compliance. Okay, then I'll make a motion to grant the petition of Peter Johnson and Tanya Johnson for a special permit to construct a 2-level, 1-bedroom detached accessory apartment containing a 2-car garage on the first level and 644 square feet of apartment on the second level, as allowed by zoning bylaw Article 9, Section 953. Subject property is located at 7 Macomber Lane, Westport, Mass., and shown on Assessors Map 89, Lot 112, with the conditions of the plans as submitted and date stamped, as well as a deed restriction signed and to ensure that it remains as a 1-bedroom, maximum of 2-person apartment. Anything else? Any other conditions?
I'll second that.
You second it? I have a motion and a second. In discussion? No? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. Let the record show it's unanimous. There is a 20-day appeal, Russ, so don't start, and it's 20 days from the time that it is stamped by the town clerk.
Okay,
So don't start making
Nope.
things for.
I'm not ready.
Thank you very much. Hey, that was quick.
All right, great.
That's the reason why we did it in the first hearing. We went through all these things so that we can move
Great.
this along.
Thank you very much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'll talk to you next week.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks, sir.
Okay. The second hearing is 50 Spinnaker Way. It's an administrative appeal of Spinnaker Way LLC from the cease and desist order of the building commissioner and building commissioner's determination that a special permit by the zoning board of appeals is required to conduct a bed and breakfast under zoning bylaw Article 14, Section 1.1. The subject property is located at 50 Spinnaker Way, Westport, Mass., and shown on Assessors Map 22 lots 2Y and 20K. This was prompted by a letter from Ralph Souza, the Building Commissioner and Zoning Enforcement Officer, and I'll read that into the record. Dear Mrs. Sparks, after review of the submitted building permit application received on March 21, 2023.
I think you're the wrong one. Sparks.
Oh,
That was just
you're right, I got
Ashley.
the wrong one.
Yeah.
I thought, are they related?
No, that's, sorry. That's still have the first paperwork in here. Move on to
You
the
know, you
second
shouldn't hang out the social club
I'm glad you
beforehand.
caught that. I've read the whole thing. So here's Spinnaker Way, okay.
It's here someplace.
It's Ralph's letter. It's in here somewhere. Okay,
Here we go.
this is even a shorter one. So this is a letter from Ralph Souza, the building zoning officer. He's Dear Attorney Pellegrini, as per the Westport zoning bylaws, table with use bed and breakfast in an agricultural residential district require a special permit issued by the Board of Appeals. The dwelling in question has, since late January, early February of 2023, been rented every weekend with continuous traffic per neighbors. Therefore, this must be brought before the Board of Appeals for a special permit. Sincerely, Ralph Souza. Okay, so once again, the same process as the previous. I'll have the representative for the petitioner to come forward, identify himself, provide whatever information is appropriate. The board will then ask questions. Once the board has completed asking questions, I'll open it up to for the audience.
Good evening.
So, name and address.
My name is Robert Pellegrini. I represent the owners. My office address is 63 Main Street, Bridgewater, Massachusetts, 02324. Okay, so we're here before you for administrative appeal. As much as you've probably seen some of the emails that have gone back and forth, I'm really coming sort of as a last resort. I've tried several times to communicate with the town, but I've been doing this long enough to understand that certain processes were required here. So basically what it boils down to is my clients were asked to come before you for a bed and breakfast. I read the bylaws, the definition of what that was, and we clearly don't really fit that.
Okay, can we just pause just for a second?
Sure.
I need to identify the members who will be seated on this will be Jerry, Barbara, myself, Constance, and Ray.
Okay, that.
And
That's very helpful.
since it's an administrative appeal, again, it requires four
Yes.
votes to grant.
I understand. So I trust from everything I've learned so far through this process, that I'm sure you've heard a lot about this behind the scenes. I expect that you would prefer that we just keep it right to that point
Yes.
as sort of a courtesy to you, if nothing more. And, this being a public hearing, I know that's important to you as well. I'm not sure how much you want me to get into reading your bylaw to you. It sounds sort of silly. I know you know it way better than I do.
Well, I think it'd be important to
Sure.
for the audience to hear it.
Sure. Section 3 has all of your definitions in there. It includes bed and breakfast, which reads a private owner-occupied residence, which this is not, with 1 to 3 guest rooms. The bed and breakfast is subordinate and incidental to the main residential use, which this is not. The home is to be the primary and legal residence of the owner, which this is not. It's a single-family residence, and the owner shall be responsible for the operation of the property and shall be a resident of the property, which they are not, when the bed and breakfast is in operation. It goes on, but I think that is the important part. I can continue. Individual guests are prohibited from staying there for more than 14 days in any 30-day period, but that's not applicable here. So that is my reading of it. I think I've added my comments in there, and once again, in the interest of your time and trying to keep this rather succinct, I think I should just leave my presentation at that. I'm happy to chime in to answer any questions you have. I've brought with me a reporter. Please understand, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been caught without anything to look at, and I've had to amend complaints, and I just prefer not to do that. I've also brought the owners, Roger and Brenda, with me. They're sitting right behind me. And the real estate agent that represented them in the purchase is here as well, just because he's a friend of theirs now and in support. And I think I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. We've all read the not only the petition but the bylaw and Ralph Souza's letter. I mean, and I want to, make sure everybody here understands that we're here for one purpose and one purpose only. And that is Ralph Souza, who is the zoning enforcement officer, sent a letter to cease and desist operation of a bed and breakfast in accordance with zoning bylaws. And the petitioner is doing an administrative appeal, which says that Ralph incorrectly administered the zoning bylaw. So all we are here today for is, did Ralph correctly administer the bylaw, or did he incorrectly administer the bylaw? That's the only thing that we're here for, since this is strictly administrative appeal, and that's really all that the petition requests, and that's all that we really can talk about as far as this appeal goes. So, and we also have Jeff Wake, who's town council here, who is also going to help us guide through the particulars of zoning bylaw. Jeff, you want to chime in as far as, I mean, I know you've reviewed it, I mean, as far as whether or not you believe this is a bed and breakfast.
Yeah, I'm happy to, but I think my brother here outlined it pretty well. I don't know if Ralph was aware of the facts, but he is claiming, they've claimed in their petition that it is not owner occupied, which it has to be. It has more than 1 to 3 bedrooms. It is not subordinate and incidental to the main residential use of the building. In fact, it is, I think it's more properly characterized as a short-term rental. That the owner it says shall be a resident of the property when the bed and breakfast establishment is in operation. I understand that none of those requirements are met here. So in my opinion, it doesn't meet the definition of a bed and breakfast.
Okay.
I don't know, Mr. Chairman, if you want to put on the record, I think council just, as he was reading, said, as it is not, but you might ask him specifically, is this owner occupied? Just to put it on.
No, it is not owner occupied.
Is it do they have 1 to 3 guest rooms?
No.
How many guest rooms do they have?
I would say, I don't know if I'd call it that. It's bedrooms, and actually the town's been through the house a few times. How many bedrooms are there?
4 bedrooms.
Four
So,
bedrooms.
and is it the subordinate and incidental to the main residential use of the building? Or is it the main purpose of the building is to rent it out?
It's the main purpose of the
Okay.
building, yeah.
And are they residents of the property when the bed and breakfast is, are they residents of the property?
No.
Period? Do
No.
They live there?
They are residents of Westport, but not that property.
Okay. All right, so I think
Okay.
that's,
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the?
My concern was, in order to determine whether it is or it's not, I wanted to know what it is being used for. But with those questions, I don't think I need to address that,
Okay,
because they don't meet the bylaw.
okay. Any other questions? No other questions? I'll open it up to the audience. Anybody who wants to come up and talk? Again,
We don't have a microphone set up.
you can come up to here. Name and address. How many people are planning on? Okay, just a couple. Okay, fine. Otherwise, I can. If there's going to be a lot of people, I mean, impose a time limit. But that's fine. Go ahead. Your name and address.
My name's Anna Sylvia, and my husband James Sylvia and I own 52A Spinnaker Way, which we share the road with 50 Spinnaker Way.
Okay.
This sort of business has affected me personally and directly. That on May 13th of this year, I came home with my daughter from the emergency vehicle to not being able to drive down to my own property that I've owned for going on 7 years. I rang the doorbell, no answer. I was upset. I called my husband and I said, I'm calling the police. I'm fed up with this. In the meantime, this young couple came out and very rude female guest asked me, "What is your effing problem?" I said, "My problem is you're parked where you're not supposed to, and I'm just home with my daughter from the hospital. Get over yourself, B. Go F yourself. We're here for a funeral." That booking had been booked for weeks in advance, so they must have known when that person was going to die. I work in the healthcare field. I never know when my patients are dying. I take care of very sick people. The male guest proceeds to "Shut up, lady," blowing me kisses, "F you," and gave me the finger and proceeded to move the car. My husband comes up the driveway hearing the whole commotion and says, "That's it, call the police." I said, "I've done so." There, mind you, there was excessive cars. There was at least 6 or 7 cars on that driveway. And they asked me, "No one told us where we could park and where we couldn't." They have a makeshift parking space for extra. I said, "Maybe you should call your host, Brenda, and ask where you should be parking." Yeah. Okay. My husband comes up, and there's now a car pulling in with these 2 guys. They immediately opened the doors, come out, and said, "What is the effing problem? What the F do you want?" And my husband says, "This is what goes on in my own property." My husband kept saying, "Call the police." Why we're calling the police? My husband's like, "Call the police." The car left, the police came and said, "They moved the car, there's nothing we can do." Multiple times we have called the police and there's nothing they can do. I said, "Well, they're swearing at us, they're rude to us, they're loud. There's music blaring at 6:30 in the morning on Sunday when there's a noise ordinance in this town that you can't be making any noise, excessive noise until 7 a.m. But 6:30 we wake up to music." And the police came and said they have freedom of speech. They can say to you whatever they want. These people are not residents of that house. These people come there for 1 night or 2. This is like more run like a hotel, strictly as a business. And I have to deal with it every single weekend with the dirty looks, like I'm the one that doesn't belong there. No, you don't belong here. But going forward with the incident, I said, "So you guys can't do anything about it?" "No, we recommend you take it to the town hall." And I said, "We've spoken to Ralph multiple times, and his hands are tied because it has to go to town council, and we're waiting for that." "Well, I recommend you hiring an attorney. I recommend you sending the owner a registered letter." I don't want to talk to the owners. I don't want to talk to anyone that has anything to do with that house. I want to talk to the town. I want the town to hopefully stand up for us. Only because they don't contribute anything to the neighborhood. They had 3 opportunities to take their business in their own neighborhood. There was 3 different houses being sold. 47 Duval Ave, 27 Jennings Way sold on 4/15 last year, and the best one right on there, a few houses down from them, 31 Jennings Way sold on 11/23. They closed it in December of 22. Why not take this business into their neighborhood? Because I know they don't want to deal with it, because they're tucked in their houses every weekend and we're dealing with the mess. Because they don't want their neighbors complaining. They don't want their neighbors being bothered by the people they're renting to. But we have to deal with that. I don't think that is right. I think Ralph is more than right to put a cease and desist in that house. There was a phony for sale sign in that house that was up for a month, only to be taken down. And when a neighbor questioned the realtor, they said, "She's booked for the summer. Why are you guys always bitching about it?" We're not bitching. It may sound, but we're not. We're voicing our concerns, our frustration. And now we have to deal with her profit, because I think there's somewhere I found that it says that those houses are not supposed to be used for more than a residential, meaning people reside there day to day, not people coming and going. Because now in my eyes, that's a business. You require permits, you require to be in the proper zoning, which clearly is not Spinnaker Way. That's residential, not commercial. Even the map in the town hall has your commercial, and I've looked at it, and Spinnaker Way, or neither, where they live on Briggs Landing, is a commercial area. There's no room for this. But what got better was, I felt so offended when the police officer Reed and Levesque came and said, they have freedom of speech, they can speak to you however they want. Mr. Tavares right there is a veteran of this country, fought for our freedom. Was told on the previous meeting, which I don't think it was an avenue that we had to voice our opinion. When he was getting a little upset, he had to step out. If anyone has freedom of speech, it's that gentleman right there, not those people that come into the neighborhood, giving us the dirty looks and speaking to us however they feel like it. Because then they go on to put on their reviews, don't mind the neighbors. So come right in. You have a green light, don't mind the neighbors. Do whatever heck you want and feel like it. Because they have no attachment to that neighborhood. We worked hard to pay for those houses. We bought houses, but we turned them into our homes. I raised my family, my daughter there. I don't even take her for a walk. I don't know if those people are sex offenders or drug dealers. I have to come out one day to this vehicle videotaping the neighborhood. How do I know this is not a sex offender? How do I know this is not someone up to no good? And I have to drive up to this with my infant daughter in the back seat. And this is what I have to go home every day. No, after that, I required an emergency vehicle, Westport EMS, dispatched to my house on May 15th, exactly 2 days later at 3:30 in the morning. Had that happened that day, and I was down on the lane, and I needed EMS, and this car's parked there, please tell me how many minutes am I going to wait for EMS to get to me? When you dispatch EMS, you need them right away. Every second counts when you need them. You don't have time for someone to finish doing God knows what in the house and come out and move the car. That's not how EMS works. Moving on to that, we had, not to say that the situation was such a hostile and threatening environment, I couldn't even sleep that Saturday night because I was afraid those people were coming down the lane, breaking into my car, scratching my car, doing whatever the hell they felt like it. So I had to stay up thinking of that. I don't know who they are. They're New York plates, they're Connecticut plates, they're Vermont, they're New Hampshire, they're Rhode Island, there's some Mass plates. They're not backgrounding checking those people. Like a regular tenant that you ask them for permission if they can background. I have a rental property. I background my tenants when they come in. I ask for their permission. If they have nothing to hide, they're not going to care. They're not backgrounding these people. Just last weekend, I'm coming up the driveway with my daughter in the back seat, and there's this Honda Pilot maroon whipping around the corner of the driveway, so I had to press my brakes hard. I'm like, hey, where are you going? The house is not running away. That's what I have to live with now, with this nuisance. This is not a bed and breakfast. This is not an Airbnb. This is a nuisance. We have been as far as ordering these signs that says neighborhoods are for neighbors, because it's what they are. No Airbnb. We had the construction crew that stayed there for 2 weeks. That was the most that people have stayed there, was a construction crew.
What is this?
It's a
pickup truck?
company. Yeah, it's a
But
pickup truck.
This is the parking situation.
Yeah, this is their driveway in front of their garages, and this is the makeshift near the well.
Okay.
Going up to Alyssa's house across the street, taking pictures on the sign, and when Alyssa's husband said, what's going on? Nothing, dog. Everything's fine, dog. That's how we get spoken to. They're not dealing with that on Jennings Way. They're driving right up to their house, locking their car going in. Hey, neighbor. Hey, Brenda. Hey, Roger. That's what they're dealing with. We're not dealing with any of that. I don't even take my infant daughter anymore around the neighborhood. Don't know who they are. I don't want to expose her. Not to mention that we've been lied since day one. I met Mrs. Brenda and Mr. Andrews at the mailbox coming home when they first closed on the house. I introduced myself. I welcomed them into the neighborhood, thinking they're moving in. And they led me to think they were moving in. They not once said that they were just using this for a business purpose. I come home the next day to a nice letter with a candle and some chocolates. Thank you. Saying what they're using this business for. Event center. It's advertised as on a beautiful, quiet neighborhood. Yeah, it is a beautiful, quiet neighborhood. We all have worked so hard to make the neighborhood quiet and beautiful. And that's why I bought a house in Spinnaker Way. Had I known this, I would have never had invested a penny on Spinnaker Way or in the town. The neighborhood is quiet and beautiful because we all take care of each other. We all know each other. We all welcome everybody in, except for the Airbnb. Getting married? How great would it be for you and your bridal party to rent a house and wake up together on your big day? That's a party. It's not an Airbnb. It's not just one short stay. It has happened there. Someone has gone there. And then, like I said, this business came into us as a total surprise. Advertised as an event center for corporate events, bridal, wedding parties, etc. in a beautiful, quiet neighborhood. It is that way because we all preserve it. But what gets to me is that Mr. Roger Andrews said to us outside with his attorney in the previous meeting, "Why don't you call me when there's an issue?" I'm not supposed to babysit your property because I don't expect my neighbors to babysit my property. And what are you going to do after the fact? Kick them out? Yeah, you're going to kick them out because guess what? Your pocket is full already because you're not going to refund them. So you already made your profit, so what do you care? I just hope that every single one of you put yourselves in my shoes, my neighbor's shoes, and think for one moment, one day, one weekend, you're in your quiet neighborhood, in your house, on the weekend, and you're not being bothered by a bunch of strangers that you don't know who they are. And we are. Because no one from the town, and Ralph goes by during the week, but there's nobody there during the week. Well, except today, we have guests today, as I'm leaving, they're pulling in. No one's in our shoes every weekend. We're dealing with it. And it's such a horrible feeling. Like, I don't look forward for weekends in my house. And that's now how I should be feeling about a beautiful home that my husband and I worked so hard to make our forever home. But I don't feel that way anymore because they brought such a nuisance and they have put such a bad taste in our mouths. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, that was very moving.
Thank you for your
Anyone
time.
else?
Hi. My name is Jennifer Keller. I live at 46 Spinnaker Way for the last 19 years with my husband.
Light down so we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me
that's
now?
good.
Okay.
Good.
With my husband, John, and 2 sons. I just want to kind of say, I know this meeting is just about the bylaw, and that's really all you're talking about. You don't really want to discuss that it's a commercial short-term property in a residential neighborhood at this meeting. Okay, fine.
We
So the
can't. We can't discuss it. That's-
Okay.
No, it's not that we don't want to discuss it, it's we can't discuss it.
Okay, so points I'd just like to make about referring to the bylaw is that the reason that Ralph sent that letter is because this company, Spinnaker Retreats, As Anna said, they sent all of the neighbors a letter saying that they were gonna use it as a small family Airbnb, wouldn't be a problem. The same week that that happened, they had an open house with at least 50 people parked on my lawn right next door. An open house type situation, and they had it advertised on social media as a 50-person event place where you could have corporate events, parties, possibly weddings. It was all advertised. So we brought that to Ralph. So they did try to have it without getting the proper licenses from the zoning board. They did try to do things as, I don't even know if you want to just call it, it wasn't just a inn. They were having functions there, commercial functions in a house with a septic system. They were trying to do that deceitfully without going through the proper process of getting the proper licenses for that. You do need licenses for that. So we brought all of that to Ralph's attention. As soon as Ralph spoke to them, they backed away and they changed their plan. So they were caught in a lie, caught not doing what they were properly supposed to do, changed the plan. So then they had 10 people or less in the property. Then we had to go and talk about how it's a septic system. So then after all that, which I'm sure you're all aware of, they went to 8 people. So again, now we have 8 people there. We don't have 8 people there. We have 10 people there. We don't have small families there. We have bachelor parties that they're yelling at my son when he's in the backyard with 2 of his friends, drunk on their back deck. We have day workers staying there for 2 weeks that made us all very uncomfortable. This is a very small, nice community. There's a reason why we all live there. We work hard to live there. And by putting this in the middle of, a neighborhood like this, you're really opening the door for many problems. Socially, security-wise, we all call the police every time we see things suspiciously. A lot of the rentals were done when it was cold outside. So by 10 o'clock, all the drunk guys go in the house and you can't hear them. So the police really can't do anything. I don't know. I'm sure none of you would like to live next door to this, especially after 19 years. If you start the process being deceitful, which is what this company has done, they're going to continue to do that. They're deceitful to their clients on Airbnb. They say they're 3 miles from the beach. You can look, she advertises things like that. She changes how many bedrooms are allowed. There is never just 8 people there. We call and complain and everyone says, oh, take pictures. Oh, okay, in my spare time I'll take pictures, security things of the people next door. It is such an inconvenience. The property started out as trying to be something else. It has weaseled down to being, what they can get by on. So by allowing them to do that, you're really allowing someone that didn't go through the proper process to still make money off on a commercial property. I understand our bylaws are very, not really set towards not having short-term rentals, which might be something that the town should really invest in looking in, because if not, you're gonna have major problems in a lot of neighborhoods. And it's scary for residents, it's scary having kids on the sidewalk right next door, when cars, just like Anna said, come, rushing out of there. You don't know who these people are. So it started out deceitful, continues to be deceitful. We just wish that this would just go away, because it's not the proper place to have an Airbnb, to have a wedding function place, whatever they started out trying to do. And they did try to do it on the shady side. They didn't go and talk to you guys and see if this was possible before purchasing it. Then they tried to get a larger septic system. Then they stopped doing that because that would have been too much or whatnot. It's just very deceitful, and just to let them still function is just wrong. It is really, really wrong. They had their opportunity, just like if you wanted to purchase a piece of property, you have to go get the right permits and get it approved. Same thing if you want to have a 50-person event site or 25, whatever they've changed it to so many times to meet their needs. They're just not good character company that stands up. They do not care about this neighborhood. They do not care about who they rent it to. There has been very, very scary people staying there many times, and I'm sure you wouldn't want your families to be next door to it, your grandchildren or your children, and I just hope that you really take that into consideration. And I think Ralph has done everything he can. This is what they tried to do in the beginning, so that was admitted from both lawyers. That is what they were trying to do. They have been trying to do. They advertised it. They still continue to advertise it after a cease and desist was sent. So you're not dealing with very reputable company right here. That's all I have to say. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Hey. Name and address.
Anthony Grassi, 52 Spinnaker Way. Just wanted to just back up Anna, the first person that spoke. We share that driveway. So 50 Spinnaker Way, which is the subject property that we're talking about here, is in the front. They have their own driveway space, which you saw the pictures of. But then beside it is the driveway that also goes all the way down the back and splits off to myself and Anna and Jimmy. So when that car was parked there, we're blocked. We can't get in or out. So when Anna came to me and told me about it that day, I actually went up to talk to these tenants. And they told me that the car that was there left won't be back. Lied. The car came back in half an hour. So I could reiterate all the other stuff that the other neighbors are saying. It's all the same stuff. I could do it, the same thing, but they already said it. But I just wanted to let you know that I also went and spoke to these tenants, and they lied to me. They didn't give me as much of an attitude, but they lied to me. They said the guy wasn't coming back, and he did. Also, at the last meeting, I did speak with Roger, and he said, if you have any problems with these tenants, anybody who's renting, you call me, and I will kick them out immediately and not refund their money. So after this did happen, I did call, and Brenda answered the phone, who's the other owner. And she said, I don't know about that. I'd have to talk to Roger. And Roger never called me back after that. After the last meeting also, the attorney, Mr. Pellegrini, took my email address and said, we're going to get a meeting of anybody who wants to meet regarding this property to discuss it. I gave him my email address. I got an email, are you interested in having a meeting? Yes, I am. I sent it back. Repeatedly, I've been saying, let's have a meeting. Nothing. I still would love to have a meeting, because in my 14-page decision for mine, theirs, and the Sylvia's deed, it's a shared one that says, because of that deeded access, we're responsible for maintaining and cost of maintaining this access, this deeded right-of-way. So I just built my house, I got occupancy 2 months ago. Yeah. So I've been building the house for 1.5 years. Before this whole Airbnb thing started, I thought I was buying a good, nice piece of land in a great neighborhood, nice and quiet, and then right before I get occupancy, this stuff starts happening. But again, it's been 5 or 6 years. No one has done anything to this driveway in 5 or 6 years. Now, granted, I'm sure my construction vehicles didn't help the situation any, but either way, it's still nothing has been done. So I want to sit down with the new owners, because I sat down with the last owner and I said, hey, did you know we're supposed to have meetings about the driveway? And the house went up for sale. So I'd still love to sit down with somebody to talk about how we're going to maintain this driveway. So whenever anybody's ready, we can still have that discussion as well. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, any other comments from the board?
I have a question. In reading and preparing for this,
There's this piece here, the Declaration of Property Restrictions for subdivision known as Longview Estates. Is that what this is, Longview Estates?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm a little confused. The first thing it says is, no lot within the subdivision shall be used for other than residential purposes.
That is correct, that's what I pointed out.
So,
But we can't enforce that.
That-
That's not our job.
well, but I have a question about it. So is that something that someone needs to, I mean,
The homeowners
that-
association needs
that
to
someone
enforce
needs
it.
to
Yeah.
Right.
enforce?
Yes.
Is it a homeowners association or a subdivision? And
If there's a deed
maybe you
restriction, there
can-
has to be an association, I assume.
Is there, they're shaking their heads that it's not an association. What is the difference between an association and a subdivision? And maybe you could help me, Attorney Blake?
Sure, an association is just that. It's often a homeowners association that takes care of dealing with roads and other commonly owned properties. Not having one would require everybody, in my opinion, in the subdivision would have the right to enforce the covenants. But it would not be something that the town would enforce.
But each individual homeowner would have the right to maybe get legal,
So they
bring
would
legal.
essentially have to take them to court.
Correct, or just talk with them and they stop doing what they're doing.
But that is like the number one thing that's listed in the,
Yeah. It's just not unfortunately, it's not
Right.
under our purview.
well, it's before us, and I'm curious
Yeah.
about it. It's included in our packet. It's highlighted, so therefore, I read it, and I have a question about it. If you don't want me to talk
No,
about it,
no,
don't
no.
put it in the packet.
I'm not commenting to you, I'm just making it clear to the audience that it's not, we can't rule upon.
Right,
a
I
deed
understand
restriction.
that, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
I'm glad you brought it up, because I would have as well. It's in their covenant, but that's between the homeowners.
Is everyone in the development part of this declaration?
Yes,
Every one of you have it on your deeds,
yes.
including the new guy, I mean, the newest house.
Mine doesn't.
yours does.
not part of, they weren't part of the initial neighborhood.
My house was only constructed 7 years ago, so, and Tony's house was just finished, so we were not part of what went on with the first Longview Estates.
Okay.
But the people that purchased the house, 50 Spinnaker Way, were aware of that when they purchased it.
They're part of it.
So that house has always been part of that.
How can it not be enforced if it's on the deed?
It can be enforced, but not by us,
So who enforces?
the courts.
Courts,
Why do you need a lawyer if it's in the deed?
because you have
Yeah,
to have
'cause-
somebody actually administer it.
Well, it's in black and
And
white.
yeah, it's in black and white, yes, and that's the reason why you go to court.
So,
The police can't enforce it because it's got nothing to do with the town regulation.
It's civil at that point.
It's a civil issue.
so, and maybe Ralph, you can help me with this. So, when Long Built went to build these houses, this whole subdivision, part of the deal for them to do it is they had to put in these restrictive covenants.
Correct.
So the town got involved.
No, the town didn't require them to do it, the subdivision did it as part of the subdivision. The town didn't
To
require
get
it.
approved though,
But
to
the
have a
town,
subdivision, they had to put that in.
Planning
No.
board.
I bought my property 19 years ago, yes, we were
Yes.
told that.
But this is not a town document, it's a deed restriction.
Even though it was recorded in the Bristol County.
It's a deed restriction, right.
But is it something that in order for the town to approve the subdivision, that they
Yes.
were
They had to-
that they requested was in it,
That's
yes,
not us.
in the
That's not
covenant?
us either.
it was part of the deal in order to get the subdivision to begin with, is it was restrictive covenants.
That probably was in the planning board
So that would be a
stages at
planning
that
board
Right.
issue.
So then the town was involved in this.
Yes,
But
you are involved.
it's-
Correct.
Isn't it a selling issue also to make the subdivision attractive?
Right.
Right, but still, this is not a town document.
No, the selling-
It's not something that the town can
Litigate.
unilaterally administer.
It's the same as somebody who was squatting in your house,
Right.
right? The town can't enforce that squatter, or the police could, But in order to get them out, like, you own that property, you have the right, because of your deed and your deed restriction, to enforce that that's your house.
Right.
And that's your restrictions in your neighborhood.
Right.
That gives you the right to enforce that.
And
But
and
we
that's not
don't.
really what we're talking about tonight anyway.
Yeah.
Well, it's in there though. I have a
Well,
question.
it should be a deciding factor in this
Yes.
case.
This
No
case, I'm going to
information.
remind everybody what this case is,
I
okay?
understand what.
The case is that Ralph sent the cease and desist order citing a particular paragraph in the zoning bylaw, the bed and breakfast paragraph. Either, and all we are here to decide is, did he do that correctly?
He did.
You want to come back up and talk, or?
I think Ralph had all the right to send, how many cease and desist, Ralph? At least 2 that I have copies of. What's the purpose of a cease and desist? I think it means that, like I said, I'm a nurse, not an attorney, is once you have that given to you, just like if I was building something and they picked up the phone and said, Anna's building an addition. Ralph, first thing on Monday morning, stop.
Stop.
You have a cease and desist.
Yes.
Don't bang any more nails, because every day you bang an extra nail after today, you're gonna get a fine. Have they been fined?
No, because they sent an appeal.
Okay, they send an
You
appeal.
could have done the same thing. If you were banging nails, you could have sent an appeal.
And you could still bang nails until the appeal is heard.
Until
Until
it's
the
settled,
appeal-
you can still
okay.
bang nails.
All right, I get that part now.
Okay.
Matt gave a cease and desist from the Board of Health about a septic system. The excessive people keeps coming. They had to pump the septic. They followed through with that. But that's been a month or 2 ago, and where is all these people's voids going? How fast is this building up? So they've had all these cease and desists, and they can just keep getting away with it until the appeals.
Until the appeal.
But I think Ralph has all the right to cease and desist, and I hope you consider that he's done his job right. He didn't fail. He's helping a neighborhood, not a business. That's not the business area. We're not on Route 6.
Yes, we all understand that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's done his job right, and I give him credit for hearing us down there, banging his nails in his head, how we're fed up with this.
Yep.
Thank you, Ralph. You've done your job well.
Any other comments? I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? No? I'll start this off. I feel for all of you. And again, I agree with everybody that says you wouldn't want to have a neighbor that does this kind of thing. However, that's not what we're here for. We're here specifically as an administrative appeal. Is this or is this not a bed and breakfast? It's all we're here to discuss. Now, that does not mean that they didn't violate some other aspect of zoning. That's entirely possible. I'm not even going to get into that. But that's not for tonight's hearing. We have to, among the 5 of us, to decide, did Ralph correctly administer the zoning bylaws? And I think, our attorney and their attorney both, came to the conclusion that this is not a bed and breakfast. I mean, it doesn't meet any of the requirements for the, again, I really feel for all the neighbors. I mean, I wouldn't want to do this, but this isn't the right avenue to do this with. There are probably other better avenues to attack this problem. And by the way, the town is working to develop short-term rental zoning bylaws. We're having a meeting actually next week to try and get it on the next ballot, so that, because this is prevalent across, this isn't the only thing that this is happening. So we really do need to manage that process. But again, that's not.
Encourage these folks to write to the select board to be in
And that's the
support
reason
of
why
that
I wanted
amendment.
that we all wanted to hear everybody, because we want to understand this as we write the zoning bylaws for short-term rentals. But again, tonight is just, did Ralph correctly administer the bylaw? And I think it's clear to me that he didn't. And Ralph does a great job, and I have no
Yeah.
problem with what Ralph does.
You think he did not?
He did not administer, in my opinion, and in our attorney's opinion, he wrote a letter saying, it is a bed and breakfast, you must cease and desist. According to our bylaws, what he has is not a bed and breakfast. So he used potentially the wrong paragraph to administer.
Even though it's advertised as Airbnb, Air
Airbnb
Bed and
is not-
Breakfast,
right.
Air Bed and Breakfast means bed and breakfast, but it doesn't
Doesn't-
conform to the bylaw,
Of what a
that
bed-
a definition that we have in the town bylaw that says this is what a bed and breakfast is. So even though it's advertised as an Air Bed and Breakfast, it doesn't conform to what our definition is in the
So we're
bylaw.
just gonna have to sit.
No, wait a minute, time out. Once we close the hearing, there's no information from the, you've all had your chance to speak, and again, I feel for all of you, and I wouldn't want the same situation in you have a beautiful neighborhood. I drove by it. It is a beautiful neighborhood. But we.
Get a lawyer.
But we have to administer the law. Since this is an administrative appeal, we are confined to the aspects of the administrative appeal. And that specifically has to do with, is this a bed and breakfast? And like I said, our attorney, and I think everybody who reads this will agree, this does not meet the definition of a bed and breakfast. Again, that doesn't mean that they didn't violate some other aspect of zoning. And I'm not even going to get into that now because that's a whole different situation. Any other?
I feel for the crowd, I feel for you people. I watched the planning board hearing, well, you all were present for that. I watched the Board of Health hearings, you were all present for that. It's a very volatile thing right now, but we don't even have anything that justifies short-term rentals.
I would encourage you to get political and as a group go to the
Select board,
select board and
planning board.
and then when this comes up in town meeting to vote on,
Show up.
show up and get all of your friends to show up, and let's pass some regulations here in Westport that cracks down on this, because we all know it's getting really out of hand.
Yeah, but it's.
That time,
Is it
that
not
we
a
can't-
business? Is a Airbnb a business or
We
not?
can't.
That's
again,
not for us.
The hearing is
It's not-
closed.
they're
The
making
hearing
money
is,
out
the
of it.
hearing is
They're renting
closed.
it out.
Excuse me, the hearing is closed. We are discussing it amongst ourselves. Any other comments?
Well, I would like either now or after we vote to inform the people what is going to be happening with the planning board and so forth about this, so as they can become active
Right.
with it.
Yes.
Okay, so either now
Yes.
or later, I would like to, it's been said and I'd like to say it again.
Right. Well, I'll say it right now. The 27th, next Tuesday at 6 o'clock, their planning board meeting. We have a draft short-term rental zoning bylaw that we will be discussing and hopefully bringing in front of the town at the next town meeting. Because this is an issue for all small towns. You know, we have to catch up with modern times. And, hopefully, we can put through a regulation that will give homeowners, some avenue of control.
I'd like to say that 2 years ago, Roger and I met with the planning board on a fairly regular basis throughout the summer to plan on improvements needed in our bylaws. We rewrote a number of the bylaws, the formatting and so forth. The bylaws have to be approved by town meeting. They have to, normally zoning bylaws are proposed by the planning board. And so we did meet, and we did address short-term rentals. We even have some examples from other towns and so forth. We did address that 2 years ago. However, there were so many other issues that were pinching more than the short-term rentals at the time that they didn't want to go to town meeting with a whole bunch of bylaws, and then people just got sick of it and just didn't bother to vote for them. And So the planning board voted which ones they wanted to bring to town meeting, and they did. And we did get passed, we did get some changes. This past year, they didn't, they only did a couple of sort of corrective items in bylaw. But we are pushing to try to get this short-term rental thing on, because it's become quite a big issue. And it's not only in Westport, but all other towns. You probably hear it on the news. What Roger's saying is that we are going to start again talking about short-term rentals with the planning board. That's really where it starts. And what happens in reality is we have a few working sessions without votes taken or anything like that. And then when these get sort of mold the bylaw the way it should be, then they have to hold public hearings. And if you don't get involved before the public hearing process in the working sessions, which you could have a right to be there, and usually they'll want to hear you, at the very least, when they hold hearings on these things, show up. Tell those stories that you told us tonight. That's where it's going to make the difference, okay? Because some of the things you're hearing may not even be in their minds that this could happen, okay? So you need to bring these things forward. Unfortunately, in this town and every other place, people tend not to get involved if they're not involved, okay? Once it hits them, then they decide that, oh, gee, now, how come you don't have rules for this? How come you don't do this? We're all volunteers, by the way. And so we don't have them because of reality. And when you go to town meeting, how many people in this town? How many people go to town meeting and actually control everything that we're talking about here tonight? Very small percentage. So you gotta be involved. You gotta put the effort in. And you have already tonight with this, but right now this is not the actual forum for this. We let it be told because we wanted to hear this kind of thing. But we're gonna be continuing to work with the planning board, but it's the planning board that really is driving the ship on something like this. So I just encourage you to stay with it and go to them. We had one lady 2 years ago from the harbor who was very much like you folks are tonight, all upset. She had all kinds of things going on, probably worse than what you even have.
No,
And, no,
I'm getting a cancer workup, and my fear is that the ambulance can't get out to me because of their business.
Yeah.
That's the problem here.
come and show that to the planning board. But it was decided
They
that
don't
they couldn't
care.
go. We're not here to discuss them. We're here to discuss whether or not, how can we fix this stuff up in the future so you and everybody else in this town don't have to face it. So I'm just suggesting that you stay
No, I will
active.
be.
What's that?
Okay.
Because I don't want to live with the fear that rescue can't get me when I need it, because they're cashing out my business. I appreciate your input and your sympathy.
Okay, any other comments from the board before? No? Okay, anybody? I will make a determination to grant the administrative appeal of the cease and desist order of the building commissioner and the building commissioner's determination that a special permit by the zoning board of appeals required to conduct a bed and breakfast under the zoning bylaw section 1.1 because it has been determined that the property does not fit the definition of a bed and breakfast.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion before we vote?
I think it's self-evident. And I don't think there's any other way to go
Right.
on
So-
this. That doesn't mean it's the end of it.
Right, that doesn't, like I said, that doesn't necessarily mean that they didn't violate another aspect of our zoning, but that's not what this is all about. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. It's unanimous. There is a 20-day appeal period. you know, we really hate to do this because we all feel for you, but our hands are tied as far as what an administrative appeal actually is. So if, you know, there are other avenues that you can pursue to solve this issue. So, and I thank you all for coming out because this is the way. Normally, when we have a zoning board meeting, it's usually the petitioner or maybe one or two people. Having, you know, the neighborhood here is always good because it not only gives us your input, but we see that, you know, that there's some interest. So thank you all for attending.
Keep at it. It's not over.
And hopefully help is on the way. Okay. Other orders of business, we have meeting minutes from May 17th. Maria have generated the meeting minutes, sent them out. I think we've all.
Excuse me.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but
Oh.
are you all set?
Yes, I'm all set. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Good seeing everyone. Been a while.
Yes.
You too.
Good night.
Take care, Jeff. Thank you.
Meeting minutes from May 17, 2023. Maria has generated the meeting minutes. They've been reviewed and annotated as appropriate. So I will make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 17th. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. The record show that's approved. Good. I want to thank Cynthia and George, who wasn't here at the moment. They've been selected again for another year. Thank you very much, Cynthia, for
Right, to
re-upping.
inform me, I have to get to the clerk and get sworn in before the end of the month.
Oh, yes, right.
That little
But
sticky problem.
Thank you very much. We all appreciate your effort. There's one other thing. I watched, there's some web videos on recent court cases in Massachusetts as far as open meeting, the conduct of open meetings. I watched them both. There was a Supreme Court, a Massachusetts court case for a select board meeting in which somebody from the audience was rude.
Yeah.
I mean, to say the least.
And they can be.
And the select board.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. If you all could take it out.
The select board immediately closed the session. Yeah. And essentially it was taken to court saying that they didn't, they violated the Open Meetings Act. And the court actually ruled that you can't legislate ethics in a meeting. Somebody can be as rude as they want, as long as they are not threatening. And you pretty much have to sit and
Take it.
And they did give some advice. You can limit your exposure by limiting the time. One of the other avenues that I thought was really interesting is somebody usually, first of all, and I think we all understand this, when somebody comes up and is really mad and they're yelling, they no longer are thinking, and I'm sure you understand this as a lawyer. When somebody gets up and starts ranting and raving, their thought process isn't, so you can't impose logic on them, saying, here are the facts, because they no longer are receptive to receiving that information. So all that does is make things worse. So when somebody is obviously upset and you just let them be upset, so one of the, not the tricks, but one of the ways of trying to de-scope it is if you can find one part of it that you agree with, then you say, I agree with that. And that tends to diffuse at least some of it. Other than that, you sit for 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 5 minutes and let them vent he said the worst thing you can do is sit back and go, yeah, well, when he's done, you know. You really need to be attentive, which you should be anyway. I mean, we're all here to listen to them. So anyway, these are things that the court came up with, and that the lawyers later on digested it, saying, you know, we really need to allow people to say pretty much whatever they want to say. In a hearing like this, and I know Jeff will back me up on this, we can limit the scope of what they're talking about. If we're talking about a short-term rental, they can't go out talking about, you know, something totally unrelated. We can focus them back in. So
That case came out before, let's say, some certain select board meeting we had,
Oh.
and when they shut that certain person up, they were they were, you know, breaking the law.
yeah, yes, I mean, this was like 2018 or something. This was like
Yeah, and I read it before we had that little issue this
Right.
winter.
Right. So,
And when they actually shut you up, we could have.
So anyway, it was an interesting webinar, and we really, I mean, can anybody remember one that we actually had people yelling and screaming?
Yeah.
People were loud, but I mean,
Canvas neck.
Well, I had to write a letter. I had to write a letter for
No,
them.
you're right.
There was a cell tower Zoom meeting
Oh,
where
that-
there was a gentleman who was
You're right.
That I missed. That was
You're right.
before my
cell tower
time.
Zoom meeting where somebody kept jumping up and waving his
Right,
arms
right,
and
right.
yelling.
You're right.
And I don't know what you do, and can you just sit there and say, we will resume this meeting when you can get your behavior under control? Because that was very inappropriate.
Again, what you can do is, first of all, you can't only the person sitting here is allowed to talk. You can shut anybody else up
Uh-huh.
If you can.
if you can, and you can have them removed if they won't. So that you can do.
Okay.
So anyway, kind of interesting. And again, I do want to reiterate that we are going to push for a short-term rental bylaw. We wrote one a couple of years ago. The reason why it didn't get pushed further is it required more money. It required more effort from the planning board and the building inspector than we could afford. I mean, it just...
Most towns charge.
Yes, but even in charging it, it still means you're going to have to hire somebody.
Yeah.
If the proposition goes through, there is extra effort for the building department and the planning board. So it's more. It would be more appropriate.
It'll pay for an employee to go around do the inspections every year.
Yes.
I think actually, in addition to short-term rental, I think every rental should be inspected. It would solve a lot of issues. Perhaps
Right,
don't
and
sit
it-
the door and just
right.
throw it up by Nokichoke. If we actually had an inspection for rentals, we could actually maybe do something there.
Rhode Island's in the process of really,
Yes, I saw
Attacking.
We
those.
can also
But-
tax them.
Well, you are supposed to tax. As a matter of fact,
And
I
so we're losing
talked
revenue.
with Jeff briefly about this, and they're also violating state law. If you are renting out, there is a state requirement for taxing it.
Well, that's why
And for
Airbnb takes care of that.
applying and for essentially acknowledging that you are an
Yeah.
Airbnb. You just can't just do it
Right.
according
You
to
have
state
to-
law.
You have
So
to
not only
reg-
violating town law,
And we need to and we have to give them that mechanism in order to register, and we don't.
right. Technically,
we're-
right now, and Jeff actually looked through this, and it was a memo from Jim Hartnett that identified this. Our bylaw says that essentially anything that is not specifically allowed is not allowed. Short-term rentals are not specifically allowed, so technically they are not allowed.
But our Supreme Court would say it's a history of.
Actually, there's a court case that actually backs that up.
No, but I'm saying, if we go to the origination theory of our Supreme Court, this is where they're going right now, that's the history of Westport is rentals.
Yes.
I mean.
Yes, right. So anyway,
We wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for rentals.
there was a discontinuity evidently between our website as far as how our members, our term limits on our members. According to the website just a month or so ago, my term was due up this year. when I applied for it, Paula came back and said, no, you're not due until the 25th. So, and now I guess we've corrected
Have you
that.
determined
correct
that?
it.
Which is correct?
We're good.
I have to go by what the select board has on file.
So we just updated ours, and make them all look.
So I did, I already fixed, no, 25.
25.
Yeah, I've already fixed the.
Right, so
web-
Constance,
web page.
Constance, you and Barbara are up next year, I'm up the year after, Ray year after that, and Jerry,
I think that,
I'll be here for
Jerry's
forever.
infinity.
I think that Paula said
Jerry's
this.
going on a board.
Paula explained this to me one day. She said, Ray, they're not supposed to be two of yous leaving the board at the
No.
same time.
Right, I asked Barbara about that.
So she said it's supposed to be numerical,
Yes.
one leaving and another, you know, like that, so.
But what happened
When
was, we
when I
ended up,
joined, there were only 4 members, and there had been 4 members for quite a while,
And then you got-
apparently.
right.
So I was for a year and a half, then renewed for 5 years. I did tell Roger tonight this will be my last year, next
This
June.
afternoon.
Come on.
You're going to take my spot.
Oh, I guess I missed.
I mean, I gotta start learning how to call for adjournment.
Yeah.
Yes.
Last thing,
There you go, I know.
has everybody read the updated zoning bylaw rules and regulations? I sent them out a couple weeks ago with everybody's update. So,
Yes.
has everybody,
As soon as I got them,
has everybody been ready to vote on it?
while I was on.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay, so
Well, wait a minute, did you,
I include everything from
okay,
Jerry's.
Jerry, okay.
does Jerry approve?
And we gotta also understand, this is a living document. This doesn't necessarily, it's not gonna change a year from now.
I'll make a motion to approve our rules and regulations for.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous, good. I'll get, Maria, I'll get you the official copy. And what I'm gonna do though is I'm gonna put on the end like a sign sheet, because the right, or no, maybe just date stamp it.
Okay, because
Just
there are
date-
a couple
date-
of formatting things. that I'm
Just
gonna
date
fix.
stamp it, so that it looks official. I will update it with the correct.
to go to the town clerk?
No, it's an internal document.
I thought the last one went to the town clerk.
That was when we changed things that are, that when we
Oh,
changed
the
the form and stuff.
application.
So when we changed the application that time.
Yeah, right. Okay, any other business that,
I would just like to bring up one thing. I think we have a number of cases that are still in limbo. And I would just at some point like to ask for a status report, I guess. The two that come to mind right off the top of my head, and some of them involve legal, is the, what's the farm on Sodom Road?
Weatherlow Farms.
Weatherlow Farms, remember that?
Yep.
And it's in limbo, they took it to court, and we don't know what's going on. They did offer to do something different.
He
Right.
does, I think he does 8 functions
I don't
per
want to
year.
get into the specifics of it tonight,
Right.
because it's not on the agenda. I'm suggesting that we look into it. Another one is on Drift Road, she just mentioned one a
He
minute
withdrew
ago.
his petition.
Who is that one?
No,
Remember
They're
getting rid
renting
of,
out the house they shouldn't be renting out.
getting rid of a kitchen, and I see a for rent sign
Oh.
out there.
Right.
North Drift Road.
yeah, right by Nokichoke.
So I mean, do we let these things just go forever? Or should we at least bring to the attention, hey, do you folks, you know, in legal or Jim Hartnett or whatever, you know, these things are still hanging there, let's do something about it. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's only a suggestion.
Yep.
That's what
I
I said,
agree.
and
I was thinking about
I think
the same
every
thing.
rental in town should be inspected, right? Because it's a safety issue, and then that would take care of that one specific, probably a whole lot more too. If
But
every
what I'm
rental
saying
had to
is
be,
But what if they don't let him, Ralph in?
But we,
they're gonna have to.
yeah, so we let it go by.
Right.
I think that's
That's-
the
Yeah, they came here and then they withdrew, and that was like it. Well, you know, Ralph should be saying, hey, cease and desist is still in
Well,
effect.
isn't it, you can't do, if he withdrew, he could do it anytime he wanted. He could reapply whenever.
Yes.
Yeah, Ralph has like some legal paperwork he's supposed
Yes.
to fill out in order to move it forward, but like when, right? I
When,
mean,
right.
I'm just asking for a
Yes,
status
I
report.
agree, I agree.
I mean, I even said that, why should why should Ralph have to go to the courthouse to get the paperwork to fill it out to get to enforce the deed restriction? I mean, he shouldn't. I think the town, I think at some point, the town needs to sort of take over and pass it if it's illegal. But then
Okay.
What does the town constable do? What does the town constable do?
What is the
What do
constable?
they do?
What do the constable do?
What do they do?
Yeah.
They serve you
They
papers.
serve papers
Right.
primarily.
Well, so wouldn't they be involved in this anyway to help Ralph?
Well, I don't think so. They're just hired, you need to serve somebody.
Oh, that's all,
notice,
that's all.
You
Oh,
pay
okay.
them and they go do it.
But they hadn't.
No, we're hoping to get Ralph some help, hopefully,
Oh, I thought.
soon.
But now, last night,
They're the peace
I heard
officers.
on the news, going back to short-term rentals, Narragansett, Rhode Island just doubled their fee up to, I believe, $1,000.
Yeah, that's right, I watched that.
Newport's raising theirs as well.
Short-term rental, in order to establish a fee, a fund, to pay for the person to be the inspector.
Right, right.
So
they
forth.
should call them constable.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's how we're gonna have to
I
fund
think
it.
they ought to just blow up the
Everything
selectmen's
works
fund,
around
because this
money.
all started
Yes.
as a select board.
Lack of money.
Lack of money, right?
That's why so many of these things are not enforced.
Yep. Okay, anything else?
No, it's gonna be.
You know, when you leave, who am I gonna point to?
Cynthia has already picked up on the
We'll
fact
have-
that's one of her
we'll do it
duties.
Every time that we see each other in the Westport, or when you're after they and we're there, you can practice with me.
Okay.
Hey, I'll make a
I
motion
like to
to
move
adjourn.
that.
Oh, geez, all right, we have a motion.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.